Welcome back. We're continuing the conversation on the informal sector. Now, the informal economy, as we've started to talk about on the show, is an important source of livelihoods for individuals, families and communities. Now, this sector is a key contributor to Nigeria's economic growth and also a powerful tool in the fight against poverty. And according to statistics from the National Bureau of Statistics, considering the nature of our economy, we have about 80% thereabout of informal economy, where the bottom of the pyramid is. And figures from the NBS job creation, or with regards the amount of jobs created in the first quarter of the year, we see that the informal sector had about 61,026 jobs created, as against 476,563 created in the fourth quarter of 2015. So, as I said, the conversation continues. We're taking a look at this very critical sector. Joining me now to talk about this is Dr. Abiodun Adedipe. He's an economist and the CEO of Abiodun Adedipe Adedipe and Associates. I always get that mixed up. But good morning to you, Dr. Adedipe. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me here.
So I know you listened to the conversation I had with Bosin just a few minutes ago.
That's right.
And then listening to what I just said now, the economy is basically more informal than formal. That's so right. Taking a look at that and where we are at the moment, we're in a recession. Yeah. We're not technically in a recession, we're deep into recession. Mm-hmm. Do you think there's enough engagement to support that particular sector of the economy that we have looked at as the most viable to not only create jobs, but to lift Nigerians out of poverty?
Well, very important issue you have raised there, because any country that is serious about growth accompanied with development should be looking more at the informal sector. And this is a global phenomenon. It's not peculiar to us. So the question then should be, how do we take on this important sector that can lift the economy, but in the process also not just create jobs, but create quality jobs? Because that really is what you get at that level. Quality in the sense that it is the kind of jobs that impact lives directly. And of course, in large numbers, like Boasin remarked earlier on, the bottom of the pyramid is heavy. So whichever way you want to look at it, either in terms of the economy and activities or in terms of the population, there is a meeting point in terms of the number of economic activities and also the number of people that are impacted by those activities. So now, that is like putting it in a very simple manner. But we can take it beyond that, and that is to recognize the fact that in all our efforts in managing the Nigerian economy, let me even roll it back to the last 40 years, or maybe even take it back to 56 years, when we gained political independence. Now, if you look at the macroeconomic statistics, and they are available, they show clearly that we have had only very brief periods when we managed the economy and recognized this. And that impacted, of course, the quality of life. There was the feel-good air during such periods. Now, the question for us today is, in those other periods, especially in recent years, perhaps in the last 9 years, what have we done in terms of the reality of a large and growing population, and of course, a growing economy that is misaligned with that growing population? You find that mostly we have used financial instruments to drive growth. And that is why we have seen a lot of growth without development. So the critical thing now is to come back to what the conversation with Boasin was about earlier on, the informal sector. Now, the starting point is to look at clusters of economic activities. And this works in two conceptual bases. One is the clusters of activities. The other one is what they call the value chains. Now, they go together, and the way it goes is this. I was a part of a team of economic advisors led by Professor Kasi Garuba some 5 years ago, when we took a look at the Nigerian economy and then asked the question, what is the nature of economic activities taking place in Nigeria and in different locations? So from the big picture, what I call the macro outlook to it, we're able to identify 12 economic clusters of activities. Now you can break each of those down into different components, where ultimately you know what exactly is going on in particular areas. There are clusters for agriculture, there are clusters for textile, clusters for manufacturing, and several other activities throughout Nigeria. So the question you now be asking is, the cluster for textile, for example, what do they need there? And then you also look at the value chain for that. From the beginning of it to the end of it, what are the various interventions required in order for those activities to be re-energized?
So, Dr. Adedipe, do you get the impression that it's been more of sector-specific to grow without development rather than paying attention to the value chain who actually drive that growth?
The focus actually should be on the value chains. And I will give a few illustrations here. Now, sometime last month, I did an analysis of our economy and the way it's been managed, and then looked at some other countries that have similar attributes to Nigeria. How have they managed their economies and evolved to become not only developed, but their people are enjoying a better standard of living than when they started? And I discovered that some of them that we point to today actually focused on particular products. And I picked out, for example, Indonesia. I find that everything about the Indonesian economy is wired around oil palm. And they developed that sector over several decades, up to a point where a foreign government, in fact, especially the Norwegian government, had to offer them $1 billion